Howdy, fellow football fans, and welcome back for another edition of the Far Out Football Podcast, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, I'm your host, Evan Davies. Now, in this weird little makeshift episode of the show, because we're kind of contemplating some changes to the show right here and right now with my production team, also known as myself and a few other people, and definitely not just me up here by myself. We're going to be doing some game picks for Week 14, and that's really all we're going to be doing in this makeshift episode here. I'm going to try to do a little bit more about each game, though, seeing how I know the last couple shows has been really quick, rapid fire, how we do things. So last week we went 14-2. So overall, that means we are at 128-65 overall this season. So I would say that is a rousing success for yours truly, as we're really trying to get to that 66% mark. And that's just overall game picks. That's not with point spreads. Point spreads would be a completely different story. I don't fuck around with point spreads much because I just do not trust a lot of these offenses. Major League, some of my favorite teams like Kansas City, where they'll have these big point spreads because they should blow people out and they win by 2 points when they're favored by 10. So there's all kinds of stuff like that, which is why I don't do point spreads. I just do straight up picks. So this week, Thursday Night Football, we got Green Bay going to Detroit. So I've been at Lambeau for the last 2 games with the Green Bay Packers. They've been looking a hell of a lot better. They're still struggling to put teams away, so that does give me slight pause. Having said that, this is a team that knows how to ground and pound ball control. That's what I love about Green Bay right now, and they're allowing Jordan Love to ease back in every single game and not make it, hey, Jordan, figure it the fuck out, which I really appreciate. Detroit is favored by 3.5. I think this is more of a true toss-up game than anything. Now, Detroit, they beat Chicago. Chicago had a chance to win that game, and it was wonky. I'm just looking back at the notes here. They beat the hell out of Indianapolis the last couple weeks as well. And then I'm going back in my notes here just to see everything else. And, of course, they beat the shit out of Jacksonville because it's Jacksonville. So, and it's the show policy. We don't trust Jacksonville, and for good reason. Detroit showed us that once again 3 weeks ago. Logical says you pick Detroit here. If I'm being fair and honest, I still pick Detroit because they're just rolling. My concern with Detroit here is history proves when a team really gets rolling, they still drop a game to a division rival. They've yet to do that outside of, did they lose the Minnesota game? No, they won the Minnesota game when they first went up. So they always tend to drop at least one division game. I don't think Minnesota's playing good enough football to do that to Detroit now in a second matchup. I think if any team's going to catch them in division, it's going to be Green Bay. Is that wishful thinking on my part? Possibly, but that's also just a historical factor. Kansas City, when they've been on their runs as of late the last couple of years, they usually drop a stupid one to the Raiders, or they dropped one to the Chargers with Phillip Rivers when Rivers was still there. You know, they always drop a game or two. New England, they always had trouble with Miami while Brady was their quarterback, and they were just going on these monster November, December runs. They'd always drop a late one to Miami because they just, for some reason, did not match up well with Miami in Miami, even when Miami was garbage. So there's a lot to be going into those matchups. I still think Detroit is overpowered. If I'm being fair and honest, I'll pick Detroit. It goes against my gut because I truly think Green Bay can pull this game out. But this is what takes a team from the upper echelon to that next tier down. If Green Bay pulls this game out, I think it's time for the discussion to be, yes, Detroit is still playing the best football of anybody in the league. I know Buffalo's super hot right now. We're going to get to Buffalo in a second, but Detroit truly is the best team in the league right now. If anyone's going to catch them and try to make a push in the NFC, I think those comes down to, right now, unfortunately, comes down to Philly or Green Bay. I don't think any other team really is qualified at this juncture because we're seeing Sam Darnold start to get that more inconsistency. He's still playing well. I don't want to take that away from him, but you're starting to see more of the roller coaster that used to be Sam Darnold with great coaching versus just constant great play. You're not seeing that even line. You're seeing more of that up and down a little bit with Sam Darnold. So I'll go Detroit here. I don't like picking it because I'd rather just pick Green Bay and go with Go with my gut. Jets are going to Miami. Miami's favored by 6. This is an easy one. It's Miami. The Jets are a disaster. I would truly beg to say that I think it's time for Aaron Rodgers to call it a day. If he's not going to call it a day, I don't know who's going to pick him up. That's the other problem. This isn't like, everyone keeps comparing this to Brett Favre, and very rightfully so. Quarterback loses favor because of his own personality to a degree inside of the smallest market in the NFL, but the most storied franchise. Goes to New York, where New York needs a quarterback to help them with the team that otherwise has a whole lot of pieces, and it doesn't end up working. Here's the problem, though. Aaron Rodgers has been shown to be playing very poorly for the Jets. This is not revisionist history. Brett Favre, until tearing a rotator cuff, the interceptions were still up there, but he was still making that offense extremely productive with the Jets until the torn rotator cuff. People forget that team was 8-3 and they beat a 10-0 Titans team. They ended that undefeated streak of the Titans. They were damn good. That was a CK2K year, I believe, or CJ2K year, I believe. They were damn good, and then he tore his rotator cuff, and they just couldn't finish out the season. That's why they missed the playoffs. That team was rolling. In my opinion, watching the Jets that year, that was the best Jets team of the last 25 to 30 years. It just so happened their quarterback went down, and they were screwed. That's not Aaron Rodgers right now. Aaron Rodgers isn't that anymore. Aaron Rodgers is far more the guy that lacks mobility, and he's lacking that accuracy that makes Aaron who he is. And that's just strange to see, especially when you see the pinpoint accuracy that made Aaron a top 10 quarterback in NFL history. You're not seeing that with Aaron anymore, and the mobility's not there. I'm going to go Miami. Miami can't play in the cold. That's abundantly clear, especially after last Thursday on Thanksgiving, which... what a glorious day. Went to Lambeau with my mom, and it was great fun. But they have enough moxie to try to compete. I'll give them that because they didn't want to go away. I will give them that. I think they can easily take the Jets here. Atlanta going to Minnesota, return of Kirk Cousins back to Minnesota. I'm going to take Minnesota. I don't trust the consistency of Atlanta whatsoever. Kirk Cousins is way too up and down. Their offense is shoddy. It pains me that my fantasy playoff starts this week and half my team that I have to rely on possibly is Atlanta Falcons with Bijan Robinson, who fantasy-wise is not the monster everyone thought he was going to be, and I took him with the first overall pick, so that hurt my feelings. And on top of that, I have Kyle Pitts, who I bench him, he scores 20 points. Put him in the lineup, he scores 2. And normally, I don't give a shit about fantasy when it comes to real-life football. But that's a good indicator of production with specific players when someone goes from here to here constantly. That's a big problem. So I don't trust the consistency of Atlanta as well. Also, their defense is not as formidable as they were early on in the season. So I'm going to go Minnesota here. And I think Minnesota, again, is going to pull out a bullshit 24-21 style win where they don't truly show you, oh, yeah, we're the Vikings. We're going to kick the shit out of you. They're going to win because they're a more talented team, and there's a team that's more prone to mistakes than they are. That's what I think this is. And I know that could be summed up in all of football, but I think you guys understand the message I'm going for. New Orleans, -4.5. They're going to the Giants. It pains me that I might have to take New Orleans on this one, but I'm going to. I don't like either team. I don't want to pick either team. It also pains me as I do have a lot of love and respect for the Giants, especially because of our boy Brandon, and Derek, and also my brother grew up as a teen far more a Giants fan than even a Packer fan. I do have some affection for the Giants, but they're so bad. This is just a race to the bottom, and they want to stay on the bottom for that number 1 pick. I'm going to pick New Orleans just because I think they'll be slightly more functional than Tommy Cutlett's-led Giants. Carolina going to Philadelphia. Philadelphia favored by 12.5. I know Bryce Young's playing a lot better. Redemption on his part, and I'm glad to see it. I was a big Bryce Young supporter coming out of college. I really, really appreciate what he's been doing to turn around their, at least the opinion of him, to give him another shot. I think that's great. I don't think they pull out a win against Philly. Their defense is tragic. Tragic. And Philly is just saying, why don't we just give Saquon the ball as many times as possible and win these games? That's all they're doing. Jalen Hurts isn't this monster passer. I know Sirianni came out last week, I believe, and said, the tag of game manager to Jalen Hurts is bullshit. Maybe that's a stretch, sure. But you can't tell me right now that this is the juggernaut offense of the NFL of 2024, because it's not true. He's doing far less than Jared Goff or Josh Allen or anybody like that, but still has a rushing attack as well to it. He's not Joe Burrow, who's just throwing for monster yak yards with Jamar Chase every week. He's hitting points after Saquon is the focus. That's truly the centerpiece of their offense. So game manager, maybe a stretch, but is it far off? I don't think so. However, I think Philly's going to kick the shit out of Carolina here. They're favored by 12.5 for a reason. Cleveland going to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh favored by 6.5. I'm going to pick Pittsburgh even though I don't like Pittsburgh. They just play a style of football I don't appreciate. I didn't have faith in them to beat Cincinnati, and if it weren't for some defensive touchdowns, they wouldn't have beat Cincinnati. But nonetheless, I don't have faith in Cleveland because I think they're going to throw another pick six or two because that's what Jameis Winston does. Overall, I don't think this game could be either really exciting or real boring. And I don't think you're going to get another classic like the snow game 2 weeks ago. And also, I got to just make a plea to the NFL schedule makers. Why in the fuck is somehow almost every year, every other year, Cleveland and Pittsburgh playing each other 2 out of 3 weeks? Just figure it out, motherfuckers. Figure it out so they don't do this all the goddamn time. I remember this happening a lot when a little bit less of a united front in the household, and our pet team was the Browns. Jacksonville at Tennessee. Tennessee favored by 3.5. I guess I'll take Tennessee. I don't like Tennessee, but they're playing slightly better, and Jacksonville's playing Mac Jones. Trevor Lawrence is out, and we already know the policy on the show. We don't pick the Jacksonville Jaguars because we don't trust the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Tennessee there, I think this game's going to be boring, but nonetheless. Seattle going to Arizona. Arizona favored at 2.5. I don't like picking either of these teams because I have an affection for both these teams right now, and I think they're both better than the record shows. But I'll take Arizona just because it's the home game. I think we are seeing more production out of the duo that was promised to us in Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. I think Trey McBride's coming alive a little bit, and James Conner is playing so well, deserves a lot of credit for them. I think they can take Seattle. Seattle's been sticking around in these games they don't belong to win. I don't think they're going to take that with Arizona. That's just me. Buffalo, -4, going to the Rams. I'll take Buffalo. I just don't know if the Rams can really show out to beat Buffalo. They're on a roll right now, and they're playing with uber confidence. When you're playing with that level of charisma, machismo, whatever you want to call it, you just have this utter faith that you're going to win. It's just the case. So I would say Buffalo -4 there. Chicago is going to San Francisco. Chicago is going to San Francisco. San Francisco is favored by 4. I don't trust San Francisco, but I also don't trust Chicago. I'm just a little weary. That's simply because they might get that one game bump because Eberflus is now gone, and maybe they might have pseudo average time management skills now that they might pull this game out. I just don't trust them. It's still in this headspace is like San Francisco's a juggernaut, and they're not. And part of me really wants to go with Chicago, but part of me just doesn't trust them whatsoever. Have I made a ballsy pick yet this week? No. And I always pick one because I just don't trust. There's always at least one upset. Just looking down my notes. Fuck it. I'm going to take Chicago. Why? I don't know. I'm going to regret this. I know I am, but I just don't like where San Francisco is. Losing Christian McCaffrey again really sucks for them. They're injured. They're battered. They're old. They can't keep it together. I guess I'm just talking myself into it. But when you look at what Chicago's done outside of their stupid decisions at the end of games, they're playing competitive football, and Caleb Williams is showing you, hey, I'm super talented. I can lead this team. And they're just making incredibly stupid clock management decisions. that are costing them games. It cost them in Green Bay. It cost them against Green Bay. It cost them against Detroit. They just can't do these things. It cost them another week, or they escaped another week with that. The Hail Mary situation, didn't manage that clock management well in Washington. They just don't manage those things well. So I think maybe just by having Thomas Brown show up and just be like, hey, what if we make decent decisions with timeouts? I think they might be able to pull out. I'll take Chicago. Chargers at Kansas City. Kansas City favored by 4. I never like to pick against Patrick Mahomes, but they just look like they can't get it together right now. Like they can win games. But I don't want to sound hot takey. I don't want to sound like I'm on one of the classic shows like First Take where this is the worst 11-1 team I've ever seen or something like that, because I know they've only lost one game, and I've been a total supporter of them all season long, but eventually rubber's got to meet the fucking road, and they are just not playing well right now. I'm still a believer that in the playoffs they can literally turn it on because that's just who they are psychologically. But part of me says the Chargers might take this one, man. They just, again, it's that weird, wonky division game. 4, however, they lost J.K. Dobbins. I'll take Kansas City. I think it's going to be a close one. I wouldn't touch that point spread in a million years. And our final game, it's Cincinnati, favored by 5.5, going to the Cowboys. That's easy. I think Dallas is going to get boat raced by Jamar Chase yak yards. It's just that simple. And it's going to be another one of those wins that people are going to say, well, technically speaking, the Bengals could. No, they can't. The Bengals are done. But it's going to be one of those games that give people this false hope that the Bengals are something more than they are. They're a team with no defense that is made up through incredible yak usage, and that's what they are. But Dallas sucks. So I think Cincinnati will take it. But that is the game picks officially for Far Out Football Podcast this week on the show. Tell me what you guys are thinking. I'd love to see it from you as well. But that is going to do it. Peace, love, and hugs to you all. Watch out for some new movie content and some other podcast content coming your way. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. Peace, love, and hugs to you all. Goodbye!